Hey everybody, Chris Peters from FloHockey here, and big news in the hockey world. Gavin McKenna announced on ESPN today that he is committed to Penn State University for the 2025-26 season. Gavin McKenna, of course, is the projected number 1 overall pick for the 2026 NHL Draft, and this is a big deal. Obviously, it's the biggest commitment that we've seen from a CHL player to an NCAA program. The rule changed in the fall, and now it opened the doors for players to be eligible starting next season. And we have seen more and more players take advantage of that option. Now, Gavin McKenna, who will go number 1 more than likely in next year's draft, has made his decision. And he had it narrowed down to Michigan State and Penn State. Michigan State, kind of a blue blood on the rise, or, once proud program trying to come back. Penn State still very in the nascent stages. They've been around since 2011, but just had their first Frozen Four last year. So what does this mean? What does it all mean? Well, let's break it down a little bit. First, let's start what this means for Penn State. For Penn State, which has never had an NHL regular in their system, a guy that they can point to and say, this is one of our NHL success stories. Well, now they get that supercharge. They already committed Jackson Smith, who was selected 14th overall by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now they add McKenna, who's very likely to go number 1 in the NHL draft. And that is a message to recruits. If you are an elite player, there is a place for you here. And now we'll have to gauge how those players perform. And that will also impact how Penn State is viewed publicly. So Gavin McKenna going to Penn State, it's a little bit unconventional, but we know that there's an NIL component to it. He's believed to get a very significant chunk of money to make this decision. I don't think that this is a decision based solely on money, because he will make millions in the NHL in the near future, but it does matter because NIL money, there's not a lot of it available to hockey players, and when you have a player like Gavin McKenna, you want to make sure that you maximize his earning potential, and that does help everybody else. So it is important to see that. Now, we won't see very many guys probably approach the number of dollars that we expect McKenna to make while in school, but we also only expect him to be there for 1 year and then move on to potentially the NHL. So what does this mean for college hockey? Well, obviously, you've got one of the most influential junior players, the reigning CHL Player of the Year, choosing to play college hockey. And that is an important thing because it is a path that those players had never previously considered. They were on the CHL path. That was all that was available to them. Now this alternative exists. And for players like McKenna, playing in their draft season, wanting to make the jump immediately to the NHL, he felt his best path was through NCAA hockey. So that is a really intriguing thing for college hockey as a whole. I think it's one of those things where you say, okay, well, if it's good enough for him and I'm a prospective recruit, it's probably good enough for me. And I don't think that I'm as good as Gavin McKenna, but if he thinks that that's going to help him get to the next level, why can't it be me? What does this mean for the CHL? Well, I think it's obviously a disappointment to not have Gavin McKenna in his draft year. There's no question about that. There is plenty of heartache, I'm sure, in Medicine Hat for all the fans that were hoping to see him in his draft season. And there is a financial component to that as well. I mean, teams do receive money from their NHL drafting teams, the NHL for where players are drafted and everything else. So there is a financial component to that as well. But I do think that for the CHL, there's been a lot of doom and gloom, and I think that that's misplaced because what this is going to do is that, yes, it is going to change the landscape. There's no question about it. Fewer players will play longer in the CHL, but that doesn't mean that you still won't have those top players play there. Any player that signs an NHL contract, and there have been a number of players that were drafted in the 2025 draft just weeks ago that did sign their contracts, they will not be eligible to play college hockey. So they will have one option: make the NHL team or go back to the CHL. That's the choice they made. So there is a good chance that we'll see players like Ben Kindle, who just signed his entry-level contract with the Pittsburgh Penguins, head back to the Calgary Hitmen. So it's not a death knell. It's not going to end junior hockey. It will make significant changes. It will change the amount of time that some of the very top players spend there, but I don't think it's going to materially change the dynamic of the leagues. It just changes the path for these players. It is a very different landscape out there now. And when you have a player like Gavin McKenna make this kind of choice, it does resonate. And so a lot of players will now that maybe never explored college hockey will be intrigued to find out what it's all about. That puts a little more pressure on Gavin too, because while he is the presumptive number one pick, he had this sensational season in the WHL. He is a remarkable player. What he isn't yet is a finished product. And so now he does have development ahead of him, and hopefully Penn State can get him, the world-class training that he needs, the strength and conditioning, the nutrition, all of those things to prepare him for the NHL. And if they do that, he will likely be the number one pick. And when he is drafted, it'll say Gavin McKenna, Penn State University. That is going to resonate for years and years to come. So when people say, well, this is all about money, this is all about NAL, it does make a difference, but it isn't the whole thing. Because think about it. Gavin McKenna being selected first overall in the NHL Draft is going to have millions of dollars of impact for Penn State University and their hockey program. It will make them more popular on campus. It will make them a more credible threat to land elite prospects, and it will make them a national championship contender this season. It doesn't make them the favorites. That's the next thing I wanted to get to, is what does this really mean for the competitiveness of Penn State? Having Gavin McKenna is amazing, but the one thing about college hockey that seems to be difficult for people to understand is that talent will only take you so far. You're talking about players with age groups from 17 to 24 in college hockey, a wide age group. There are a lot of teams whose average age will be 22 or higher, and that is where you will see some gains made in experience and physicality, physical maturity, emotional maturity, all the things that you need. And hockey sense is just different in a 24-year-old than it is in a 17-year-old, even one as good as Gavin McKenna. So I don't think this makes Penn State the favorite for the national championship this year, but it definitely makes them a threat. They've got a lot of the tools. They were in the Frozen Four last year. They've got a number of returning players. They hit the transfer portal very hard, and they've also landed a number of higher profile CHL recruits, including Jackson Smith, who we mentioned earlier. So they will have the best recruiting class they've ever had to gear up for a national championship run, but it is very difficult. We have not seen very many first-round NHL picks win national championships in the last 10 years. It just hasn't happened as frequently. We did see Zeev Buium win in his draft season. We saw Riley Tufte, who was a first-round pick, win with Minnesota Duluth within the last 5 years. But there aren't a ton of teams. These super teams like Michigan a few years ago, like Boston College last year and the year before, they haven't won national championships. They've gotten far, but not all the way. It's really difficult to win in college hockey. And just because Gavin McKenna is at Penn State doesn't mean they're automatically going to be penciled in for the national championship. What we are going to see is probably the largest collection of talent in NCAA hockey history, which is amazing. And I think if you're a college hockey fan, it is going to be a lot of fun to track. With the number of CHL players that have chosen to play college hockey this year, and that also includes the projected number 2 pick for next season, Keaton Verhoff, who committed to the University of North Dakota, we're going to see this huge influx of talent, and let's see how it impacts the product. Let's see how it impacts the competitiveness of teams, and will these players make the difference, and will it level out the playing field and maybe make some of the more experienced teams a little more challenged in their efforts to win a national championship? No matter how you slice this, Gavin McKenna choosing to play in the NCAA is a big deal. Like I said, it's not going to kill the CHL. It's not going to significantly diminish anything that the NCAA has already done or will do going forward. It is a big moment with a big player making a big decision, and it will be the dawning of a new era as we enter a completely different developmental landscape throughout the sport of hockey.